Hi, everybody. I was just going through a past AP exam review. I had to take out a lot of it because you don't have multiple choice questions. But I think this will help you and just refresh your memory before you take tomorrow's exam. Now, hopefully, everybody's gone through the demo. I posted a question. Wes had trouble uploading, but I think copying and pasting from your Google Docs is going to be honestly the easiest way. And then there's a paste button right there. I think that's going to be faster and easier than trying to convert your file and all of that. So I just think copying and pasting is probably your best option. So give that a try before tomorrow's test. Um, I've got the governor on too while I'm doing this. So, okay. So that is one thing. If you haven't done the demo, please do. The demo's pretty easy, and I'm assuming it looks exactly like that in the real test. But I copied and pasted an annotated bibliography, and it kept the reverse indent for me and everything. So I would imagine it'll keep your paragraph indents, and it was really pretty easy. So that being said, let's get to some exam review, and I just want to go over a few things. So tomorrow you're going to get your prompt two. Well, it's going to be the only prompt, and it's going to be a prose passage, and it could be anything from back in Shakespeare's time up until I don't know, this century. I mean, it could be, they could pull out anything, and they try to pick out obscure things that you wouldn't have read in class because they want you to apply what you learned to um, a new passage, and they want you to be able to examine the author's words and pull it apart and say how the author created meaning. Okay, so that's your main point. They know what happens in the passage, but they want to know how that author created the meaning. So let's get started with this. So you want to look for those basic patterns, things that we've talked about all year long, things that symbolize good and things that symbolize bad, and everything that goes into telling a good story. So we will start with the most common, which is light and dark. So when we were cavemen and we when things got when nighttime came and it got dark, bad things would happen. You know, the dark storm clouds roll in, and that's usually bad because that means a big storm. And when it is dark, bad things happen. So you get attacked, you can fall in a hole, whatever. So dark was always considered bad. Now, even in the darkest night, we can see stars, these little pinpoints of light, these little pinpoints of hope. So we can see the moon, and the moon often becomes a symbol of some hope, not as much as the sun, but it gives off plenty of light. And you've heard the saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. Dawn means a lot because that's a new day, a new beginning, a new start, and again, hope after a dark night. Okay, but being in the light or in the sun, we can see everything we couldn't see when we were in the dark. So if you've ever considered yourself in the dark about something, it means that you couldn't um, understand it. So being in the light means you can understand and you have that hope now. Okay. Now, this was from The Great Gatsby, and Nick said at one point, life is much more successfully looked at from a single window after all. And windows, we've talked about before in literature because they bring light into a dark room. They allow us to escape a room, but they also can trap us in. So I can look out my window right now and see freedom, but I can't get to it unless I break the window. Um, and this quote deals with a single perspective, and it actually talks about perspective and like if we don't see other people's views, then aren't we happier? Ignorance is bliss and all that. So that single window, that single light lets in some light, but it keeps the rest of the room in the dark. Makes sense? Okay. So you got to be careful though. Sometimes we can go out in the sun and the sun can blind us and then we can't see anything. Sometimes the sun can scorch us, and that that is not so good. Okay. Governor won't come up. Okay. So Hamlet said at one point he was too much in the sun, and which meant he saw things too well, and he was getting burned by all that was going on around him. Too much in the sun meant he knew too much, and he was getting burned. Okay. Now you got to be careful with fire, warmth. So fire brings comfort and warmth, light and security, but it also burns. So you got to watch your images. What's happening in these images? So like the island fires in Lord of the Flies, that was their rescue, the way they were rescued, and it is how they got rescued, but it was also destruction and hell. Okay. Now, water on the opposite side. Water's good. We have to have water to live. Water's our lifeblood. Water's cleansing. It can clean both objects and people. It gives us life, and we're dependent on it. But we can drown in water. So even though water gives us life, it can also take our life. In water, we can become muddy, and things can get muddy. So you have to be careful about the image. Is it a good image or is it bad? So the pouring rain in Gatsby, when Daisy comes over and it's pouring down rain, and Gatsby's goes out and walks around the house, and then he's standing in the puddle looking tragically in Nick's eyes. Things were pretty muddy for Gatsby at that moment and got worse. And then the pouring rain in Lord of the Flies. What was happening? What was the change? Was it cleansing, or was everything just getting a mess? Oh, yeah, Simon died. Simon died in that big storm. So everything was getting very, very muddied. And then, like in Lord of the Flies, that quote where it says the water was warmer than his blood, and he might have been swimming in a huge bath. So a huge bath is cleansing, but the water being warmer than his blood, it's going to set him on fire. Is it hellish? What is it? So then in Gatsby, if you think about the water separates him from Daisy. So that in the first chapter, when Gatsby's reaching over the water, he can't get to Daisy. It also separates West Egg from East Egg, so that West Eggers, the new money people, could never ascend to be like the East Eggers. Makes sense? So what's that water doing? If you see anybody traveling in your passage, think about them going on a quest, and what kind of knowledge are they gaining on that journey and from that journey. Nick took a journey. He traveled from the Middle West to West Egg, and he realized that everybody in the East were just careless people, didn't care about anybody else, and just destroyed lives. And he ended up going home at the end. We did not read about Biff, unfortunately. We would have been finishing that up probably last week. Unfortunately, you don't know about Biff, so forget him. But Hamlet, he had to journey away from the castle Elsinore in order to realize that he had to get revenge. It was only after his uncle sent him away and after he had accidentally killed Polonius that he really made his resolution to kill his uncle. Ralph and Jack journey to the evil side of the island. Ralph learns that people can be evil, but Jack learns being evil is pretty good. You get respect. And Simon learns that the beast is us. So all three take the same journey, but they learn different things. Now, whenever if you see a passage with any kind of flight or feathers or birds, all of these things mean freedom. Okay. So if you see anything, you've got to be looking at the passage, zone in on that and think, okay, what is the author trying to tell me with this description? So, kind of important. We've talked about windows and windows being the way to freedom. Sometimes the freedom's open to us, and other times we're closed off from that freedom. Now, you didn't read Death of a Salesman. I wish you had. But the one quote in there is the way they boxed us in here: bricks and windows, windows and bricks. Think about that. Bricks and windows, almost like it's the same thing. So, anyway. And then Raisin in the Sun, we also didn't read, but you may have remembered that from Mrs. Capellas' class. And it was a big symbol that in the Youngers' apartment, there was only one window in the apartment. And very little light got into the apartment, meaning very little hope. If you come across anybody going up or down a hill, just remember going up is good. You're ascending toward heaven, toward the sky. But if you're moving down, you're descending toward hell. Except when it's not. So think about in The Lord of the Flies. The top of Castle Rock was bad, and down by the lagoon was good. But Democracy, they had to go up on top of the platform. So you have to kind of be careful. But usually ascending is good, descending is bad. Remember eyeglasses and how they help people see clearly. So we've seen a lot of places where people clean their glasses, like Piggy or Allies. We've seen the billboard. You guys don't know Bernard or Mr. Lindner, so we'll leave him separate. Home. Remember that our home is comfort, safety, security, love. And when something bad happens in our home, that just violates everything that we should feel about safety. So be very careful about home and what happens there. And if they mention home, or if they mention somebody leaving home, pay attention to that idea of comfort, safety, and love. Clothing can be a costume. So, and also nakedness can be vulnerability. So we can wrap up in clothing and be somebody new. If we take off our clothing, then we're exposed to the elements. Think about a time where you've worn shorts and a tank top and it got really, really cold. Not much fun. So that lack of clothing exposes us. So think about that. Okay. If you come across anything that talks about the seasons, spring is new, birth, rebirth, fresh and green. Remember, Gatsby started in the spring of 1922 before it was summer. And we go through all those seasons. So it was all very new to Nick and to Gatsby. And then we get through the heat of the summer, and then we get into autumn. And then Nick finally goes home and he thinks about winter. So the seasons, if you see anything with the seasons, it's important. If the passage takes place in the autumn, then this is a passage about aging. Same thing with the cycle of a day. Morning is birth, new, hope, freshness. Evening is twilight. Evening and twilight are aging and reminiscence. So somebody my age, for example, looking back on their life, usually described in the twilight. And then night is closing your eyes, the eternal sleep, the long nap, whatever. Okay. Watch out for trash, decay, bathroom things. If you've got a bunch of fungus and mushrooms, not so good. So always remember, like Gatsby walking up and down the desolate path of fruit rinds. Ralph trying to get everybody to poop away from the drinking water. Ew, gross. So anything to do with these things, always bad. Now, flowers, on the other hand, flowers are really good. Okay. And remember, irony wins. So watch out if there's any irony. So, like when you read about Clarence Hervey, who could have been a really nice man, but he was too worried about what everybody else thought of him, kind of ironic. So, like mother is a profanity in the world state. Well, mother to us means everything good. We just had Mother's Day. Um, Nurturing and loving. And so when a mother becomes bad, that's really bad. And then mother is a profanity in the world state, totally ironic. John, who was the most gentle person in Brave New World, for the most part, um, who believed in Shakespeare and the higher arts and beauty of the world, and he's the one who is known as the savage. Everybody else wasn't violent by any means, but they didn't really care about um, the beauty of the world. They wanted the beauty of the artificial. So kind of important. And then, of course, remember about Maslow's. So when you're reading, think about where the characters are in the setting that you're going to read in this short passage. I mean, the short passage is going to tell you a lot, but are the people, do they have their physiological needs met? Are they feeling safe and secure? So maybe Clarence wasn't feeling so safe and secure. And so he couldn't move up here to love and belonging because he was too busy worrying about getting into the upper class. Um, is somebody here and worried about their loved one, and so they can't focus on their own self esteem? So be thinking about these things. And I hope this helps you out tomorrow, but always be thinking symbolically. How is the author putting together their words to create meaning? What is the author saying? Why do they choose this word or this set of words over that set of words? So be thinking about that tomorrow. And I wish you luck. Make me look good and get yourself some college credit. So let me know, and I might we will wait and see. There we go. Good luck tomorrow.